Hello and welcome to part 6 of the Alan Carr Easy Way to Stop Smoking webcast. By now you should have smoked your final cigarette. First of all, congratulations on being a happy non-smoker. By smoking that final cigarette, you have already taken the only step you needed to take to be a non-smoker. Follow these very simple instructions and you will ensure that you remain a happy non-smoker for the rest of your life, never ever being vulnerable to cigarettes ever again. I'd like to start with a word about the physical withdrawal from nicotine. Be aware that for the next couple of days you're going to have this little nicotine monster running around inside your body looking to be fed. Basically, you're going to starve him to death. As I have been saying throughout this presentation, physical withdrawal from nicotine is actually extremely mild. So much so that the vast majority of smokers sleep through it every single night, and it's so mild it doesn't even wake them up. If you feel anything at all, it'll just be a slight emptiness, a slightly empty feeling in the pit of your stomach, very similar to mild hunger. Now, this feeling is no more alarming than, I don't know, spotting a bit of fluff that's landed on your sleeve. It might grab your attention for a moment or two, and then you can just brush it away. And this is what you should do when that empty feeling comes. Just brush it away. The key thing, really, that you need to do is to start off feeling happy with your decision to quit. Now, it's true that some decisions are difficult, a change of job or a new partner or whether to invest in one business or another, and, but this is not one of those difficult decisions. This is one of the easiest and one of the best decisions that you will ever make. I mean, think about it. There are absolutely no downsides to being a non-smoker, just as there are no upsides to staying a smoker. If I asked you 1,000 times, would you want to be a smoker for the rest of your life? You would answer me 1,000 times, no, no, no. You have made the right decision. And this is your first instruction. Having made that right decision is never, ever, ever doubt or dispute it. You have chosen to be a happy non-smoker. Walk that path and you'll find the whole process very straightforward. Your second instruction is don't try not to think about smoking. If I was to say to you, whatever you do, don't think about bananas, what's the first thing that leaps to mind? Of course, bananas. You will think about smoking. It's what you're thinking that is the key. I mean, you can't try not to think about something that you're trying not to think about, can you? So what's the point of trying? Just ensure that whenever you think about smoking, what you're thinking is how wonderful it is to be free and how much you hated being a slave and a prisoner to this drug that didn't even get you high. I mean, if you're sitting there thinking that it's unfair that these people get to smoke and that you can't, or I want a cigarette but I'm not allowed to, well, of course you'll be miserable. But if you're thinking how wonderful it is that that you have broken free from this drug, then of course you'll be happy. And the more you think about it, the happier you become. So my advice is to think a lot about smoking over the next few days, but think about it from that positive frame of mind. Don't start with this feeling of doom and gloom. That's for people who are trying to quit smoking using willpower. Just think instead how great it is that you don't have to smoke. Great, I'm a non-smoker. Next, over the next couple of days or weeks, many of you will experience what Alan refers to in his books as the moment of revelation. This usually comes at a time when you're doing something that you never thought you'd be able to do without a cigarette in your hand. And you realize that you did it, and you didn't even think about smoking. This is the point where many people begin to realize that they really have done it. They really, truly are free. And it feels absolutely amazing. You know, it's funny. I now have 2 lists that I keep by. The one is what life was like as a smoker, and the other is my moment of revelation. And sometimes I'll read these lists, and they invariably put a huge smile on my face. So, like I said, my advice to you is to write these lists, keep them close at hand over the next couple of days. I mean, don't wait for the moment of revelation to come. It's a little bit like, what do they say? A watched pot never boils, and that's definitely this case. So don't watch for the moment revelation to come. It'll come when it's ready, but when it comes, you'll know it, and it feels absolutely amazing. So you'll know it, and you'll love it. Start out with a feeling of happiness, and seriously, you'll be there in no time at all. Your fourth instruction is to enjoy this change. You have made a big change today. I mean, it's a brilliant change, but it's a big change too. And sometimes change can be a little bit unsettling. Not because it's good or bad, but just because it's new and it's different. Can take a little bit of time to get used to. Do not allow yourself to get intimidated by this change, because this is the change that you have chosen. You have chosen to take your life back from this drug. You have chosen to take your freedom back from this drug. This is the right decision. Walk this path with confidence. In any case, what's the alternative? A life of fear, anxiety, stress, slavery? This is a wonderful thing that you have done today, and you should give yourself permission to enjoy it. Like settling into a new, higher-paying job, or moving to a big new house in the best part of town. You know, sometimes even good change can take a little bit of time to get used to. So give yourself time. Next, be conscious of some smokers over the next few days or weeks. And particularly be mindful of the concept that there truly is no such thing as one cigarette. You know, most of the smokers that you meet will be thrilled that you have quit smoking. They'll be really, really happy for you. But every so often, you might bump into a smoker that isn't exactly thrilled. You really need to be aware that every smoker has this fear of being the last one left in the trap. So when people hear that you've quit smoking, that fear might come into play for them. And these are the guys that'll say, oh, come on, you know, just have one, just have one. Well, guess what? There is no such thing as one cigarette. Just one cigarette when you were a child put you in this chair all these years later. Cigarettes don't come in ones. Or packs of 20, for that matter. Cigarettes come in lifetimes. Cigarettes only come in lifetimes. The first cigarette you ever smoked put you in this chair. What a sobering thought that is. Your fifth instruction is never to see or think in terms of smoking as just one cigarette. You must see the reality, which is that if you smoke this cigarette, it will lead to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. So you need to see this just one cigarette as a lifetime of smoking. 100, 200,000 cigarettes. Like I said, there's no such thing as one cigarette. Now, when you see other people smoking, you need to get it crystal clear in your mind's eye. These people are drug addicts. They're not smoking because they want to. They're smoking because they have to. They're smoking because they don't know how to stop. And if they knew how to stop, they would do it in a heartbeat. The reality is that these people are addicted to a drug that doesn't get them high, it makes them feel dreadful, and they're desperate to stop doing it. Why on earth would you envy such a person? Your sixth instruction is to show compassion towards smokers. Don't envy them. The truth is, they'll be envying you. But please, by the same token, do not turn into one of these sanctimonious non-smokers. Remember how much you hated those people when you were a smoker. So please don't turn into one of them. But by the same token, be very, very proud of what you have achieved. And make no mistake, this guy, this smoker, he wants what you've got, which is freedom. Next. Life, I think for the most part, is pretty amazing. But even the most privileged of lives is peppered with occasional disappointments. For example, when we lose things or we lose people that we love, at such times it's natural to go through a process of mourning, really. But do you need to go through a process of mourning when you kill an enemy? You see, I would say not. So the question is a very simple one. Have you lost a friend or have you killed an enemy? All I'm saying is, look at the facts. For years, this thing has been stealing from you. It has been stealing your time, your energy, your money, your relationships, your self-respect, your self-esteem, and your freedom. For years, the cigarette has stolen all of those things from you. You have not lost a friend. You have killed an enemy. Your seventh instruction is to revel in that enemy's death. Dance on his grave. Because if the tables were turned, never forget he would have danced on yours. Your eighth instruction is to remember that, believe it or not, non-smokers do have bad days. And you will have bad days as a non-smoker. I mean, if I'm driving along in my car and someone smashes into my car, I don't sort of say, oh, don't worry about it, I'm a non-smoker. Of course I get angry, I get cross. Of course I do. Anyone would. I just don't have any illusion that smoking a cigarette would fix my car. I mean, if I smoked a cigarette every time we hit a little bump in the road, we'd be back to being a full-time smoker in no time at all, wouldn't we? One of the things that you can be sure of, no matter what highs or lows will befall you in your future life, you will always have that wonderful, amazing silver lining that at least you don't smoke, and at least you will never have to smoke ever again. I think you'll find what I found when I became a non-smoker, which was, to my utter astonishment, my ability to cope with stress and adversity improved dramatically as a non-smoker. And I think there are several reasons for this. Firstly, I wasn't being constantly distracted by the thought of, when can I get out of here and go for a smoke? You know, I was actually able to devote myself to dealing with the issue in hand. Secondly, as occurs with anyone who quits smoking, my oxygen and nutrient levels went back to normal, which means greater energy and greater clarity of thought. And when you have energy and clarity of thought, it makes you feel more positive. And of course, when you're feeling more positive, I think it makes it easier to attack problems and solve problems, you know. My intellectual stamina, you know, because the oxygen levels in my brain were back to normal, my intellectual stamina improved very dramatically, so I was able to concentrate for much, much longer periods. Next, I also became a doer, you know. As a smoker, to be honest with you, I was always a bit of a procrastinator. In fact, I was a black belt procrastinator, I would say. I could always think of an excuse to do nothing so I could go out and have another cigarette. Often as a smoker, I'd be honest with you, I felt like a spectator in my own life. You know, I was kind of hanging on the edges of life. Now I don't need to hang on the edges of life. I'm right at the center of it. You know, molehills that became mountains when I was a smoker, today I nip them in the bud, you know, before they even become an issue. Your ninth instruction is to remember, above all, by becoming a happy non-smoker, you aren't losing anything. You are taking control of your life back and getting rid of a disease. I mean, if a good friend of yours had a life-threatening disease and recovered, would you be miserable or happy? You'd be ecstatic. Well, that's how you should feel today, because today you have taken your life back and your freedom. Celebrate from square one and keep celebrating every day for the rest of your life. You haven't given up smoking. You've got rid of it. A word about substitutes. All substitutes are fatal because they perpetuate this idea that by stopping smoking you have lost something or given something up, that quitting leaves a hole in your life. The reality is quite the opposite. Smoking was the problem here, not the solution. Cigarettes were the hole in your life. By getting rid of the cigarettes, you have filled that hole. Now you are complete. I mean, look at it this way. If you had a terrible dose of the flu and recovered, would you look for a replacement disease? Of course not. You'd just be delighted that you got rid of this very unpleasant disease. Well, today, you are getting rid of a disease, smoking, that is the biggest killer in the history of Western civilization. Nothing comes remotely close to the 4 million people killed by this drug every single year. You do not need a substitute for death. Substitutes that include nicotine are the absolute worst here. Obviously, I'm referring to the patch, the gum, the nasal inhalator, nicotine water, nicotine lollipops, all these bizarre nicotine products these days. And to be honest with you, I used many of these products when I was trying to quit smoking. You see, the problem with these products is they continue to feed nicotine into your body, keeping the little monster alive. And because the little monster associates this feeling with smoking, is it keeps the big monster alive, screaming at you to smoke. Your 10th instruction is to avoid all substitutes, whether they contain nicotine in them or not. They just create and perpetuate the feeling of deprivation. That's all they do. Think about it like this. Would you recommend to an alcoholic that they quit drinking by switching, I don't know, to beer instead of wine? Of course not. Well, blinding glimpse of the obvious alert here. To stop being addicted to nicotine, you have to stop taking nicotine. It's not rocket science, it's just plain common sense. Oh, and don't use cannabis as a substitute either. Otherwise, you're just on 20 spliffs a day, and life would get pretty unpleasant. You'd lose your house, you'll lose your job, you'll lose your car, you'll lose your family. But on the other hand, you won't care. You'll be, yeah, whatever. So, like I said, a little bit of weed is frankly neither here nor there, but categorically not with tobacco, and categorically not as a substitute. If you are currently a gum chewer, then by all means chew away. I mean, don't go anywhere near that disgusting nicotine gum. I've already touched on this point. But if you're just a regular gum chewer, you should feel free to chew away. When I smoked, I used to chew prodigious amounts of gum, and I realize now it was really just to mask the aftertaste of the tobacco, and now I don't smoke, I don't have this aftertaste, so I no longer need to chew gum. When I say don't chew gum, I'm not saying don't eat, I'm just saying don't eat to excess. Nobody needs to gain weight when they quit smoking, and when you hear these stories, you know, of people putting large amounts, 20, 30, 40 pounds on when they quit smoking, invariably they are using willpower to quit smoking. They still believe that the cigarette does something for them, so they feel deprived when they can't smoke. This makes them feel anxious and vulnerable, and they try to overcome this kind of feeling of emptiness by overeating. But to be honest with you, this has never been a problem with Alan Carr's Easy Way, because you don't have that sort of deprivation-based mindset. You don't feel empty and vulnerable. You feel happy and secure, you know. And when you feel happy and secure, you know, you won't feel the need to eat or do anything else instead of smoking, to be perfectly honest. You just get on with life and enjoy it. As I mentioned, actually, I myself lost a large amount of weight when I quit smoking using the Alan Carr method. Because for the first time, I started eating properly. I cut down this alcohol consumption. I upped my exercise for the first time, because for the first time I had energy. Like I said, you know, and this wasn't even necessarily a positive decision to want to get better. I just kind of felt less inclined to overeat and to overdrink and to sit around doing nothing. I just wanted to get up and out and do stuff, and things kind of developed from there. Like I said, I lost 35 pounds in the first 4 months after I quit. However, there are a couple of slightly technical aspects to smoking and weight that I need you to be aware of. The first is that a nicotine pang can feel very similar to a hunger pang. And some people confuse the two during the first couple of days and end up eating when they're not actually hungry. So if you find yourself getting kind of quote-unquote hungry over at odd times of the day over the next couple of days, you need to ask yourself, is this a nicotine pang or is this a genuine hunger pang? If it's a nicotine pang, then you need to brush it off, or just brush it off your sleeve as you would. And if it's a hunger pang, then eat. I mean, not junk food or you'll fall into the substitution trap, but eat well and eat healthy. In fact, the similarity between a nicotine pang and a hunger pang is the illusion of the cigarette as an appetite suppressant. I mean, physical withdrawal from nicotine feels like a hunger pang, so smokers kind of get scammed into thinking that smoking works as an appetite suppressant, when in fact it's only getting rid of a nicotine pang. I mean, think about it logically. Do you honestly think that non-smokers get hungry 20 times a day? Of course not. They get hungry at 3 times a day, at meal times. The other technical aspect to smoking and weight is in the area of the metabolic rate. Now, it is true that smoking elevates your metabolic rate, but actually by a tiny amount, between 1 and 2%. And it does it in the most dangerous way imaginable. It does it by thickening your blood and clogging up your veins and your arteries and your capillaries. I mean, let's face it, this is basically a recipe for a heart attack. I mean, come on, it's not as if smokers have this fabulous fat-burning capacity just because they smoke. I mean, if that was true, you would never see an overweight smoker. And tons of those around. I mean, I was one for years and years. As I say, weight gain has actually never been a problem with Alan Carr's Easy Way. Many people echo my experience, which was, like I said, that I lost weight when I quit, because I felt positive and empowered to look at the other areas of my life that I just couldn't control when I was a smoker. I'd never been able to seem to be able to control my food, my alcohol, my lack of exercise. And when I got the cigarette out of my life, I was able to take control in these areas. And this is really what created the weight loss and the sense of well-being. I mean, and of course, exercising is a fantastic way to kickstart your metabolism. I mean, the weight absolutely fell off me. There is one objective to everything that I have said during the course of this webcast, and it's this. It's so that whenever you think about smoking, whether it's going to bed this evening or bouncing your great-great-grandchildren on your knee in 50 years' time, it's so that whenever you're thinking about cigarettes, you're not thinking, oh, I mustn't smoke, I mustn't smoke, I mustn't smoke. You're thinking how great it is to be a non-smoker and how much you hated being a slave to nicotine. Now, in order to retain that frame of mind for the rest of your life, you only really need to remember these three very, very, very simple instructions. The first is that remember that there are no benefits to smoking whatsoever. If there were, they would be plastered all over the pack. There is literally nothing to give up here, apart from a life of stress and anxiety and fear and slavery. Secondly, remember that physical withdrawal from nicotine, while it does exist, it's very mild. In fact, so mild that it never even woke you up when you were a smoker. The truth is that if physical withdrawal from nicotine was as brutal as many people claim, you would never be able to sleep through it. The fact that you slept through it every night as a smoker, this indicates that physical withdrawal from nicotine really is imperceptible. And in any case, you're 100% nicotine-free after 3 days. The third essential to finding it easy to quit smoking is to realize that you've already won. You've done it. It's finished. It's over. You've won. You're already a non-smoker. The only challenge now is to be happy about that decision. So one final time, should we be happy or unhappy? Well, like everything that we have tried to do today, instead of making this decision based on fear and emotion, let's look at the facts. MSNBC reported that if a 40-year-old pack-a-day smoker quits and invests that money in a 401k, by the time they retire, they will be $400,000 better off. If you woke up tomorrow morning and found a check made out in your name for $400,000, would you be happy or unhappy? I'm guessing you'd be pretty happy. I know I would. And so you should be. The amount obviously changes depending on how old you are and how much you smoke, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see. What we are talking about here is, for many people, a life-changing amount of money. Now, I'm not suggesting that you quit smoking for the money. I mean, any smoker can always cobble together a couple of bucks for a packet of smokes. So whilst the extra money is nice, it's not the only reason that you should do this. The much, much bigger reason, I think at least, is that with the decision that you've taken today, you've given yourself an extra 8 to 24 years of life. Statistically, this is how much longer non-smokers live than smokers. 8 to 24 years. This is big stuff. Really, you can't buy this stuff in a store. But even that's not the big one. For me, anyway. The biggest benefit of the decision that you have taken today is that today you have given yourself access to a quality of life that you just can't have if you smoke. You can have more money than Bill Gates. It doesn't matter. If you're a smoker, your life is defined by this thing and the garbage that it brings with it. It's only as a non-smoker that you can trade in this life of stress and anxiety and fear and slavery and trade it in for a life of health and happiness and freedom. This is a wonderful thing that you have achieved here today. You should celebrate from square one and continue to celebrate every day for the rest of your life. By cutting off the supply of nicotine, you have delivered that monster a fatal killer blow. Now, having said that you should be happy, please don't get complacent. The vast majority of the people that attend our seminars really do find it ridiculously easy to stop smoking. And this is wonderful. But there's a risk that is inherent in finding something easy. Sometimes things we find easy we don't value very highly. So we can kind of find ourselves in a situation like, well, I'm going to Vegas in a couple of weeks with the boys, and the boys will all be smoking the big cigars, and so I'll just smoke when we're in Vegas, and then I'll find it real easy to quit again when I get back. Right? Wrong. If you smoke after today, you have to assume that you're going to have to smoke all day, every day, for the rest of your life. Pull out that list of what life was like as a smoker and read it, and ask yourself, very simple question, do I want to go through the rest of my life feeling like this or worse, just so I can do a drug that doesn't even get me high? This is a massive backward step. Don't go anywhere near this drug. It's very, very easy to quit smoking, but it's impossible to control it. You know, don't let the ease with which you can quit, don't let that fool you into thinking that you can smoke the occasional cigarette. It's impossible to control. Do not think that you can ever get into the ring with this guy and get out in one piece, because you can't. In closing, I will not wish you luck, because frankly, it's just not relevant. You have made a wonderful, intelligent, informed decision. You do not need luck. Instead, what I will wish for you is what happened to me when I made that decision all those years ago. To be honest with you, I was a miserable smoker, and I thought quitting would make me even more miserable. In fact, it was the opposite that happened. I am so much happier now that my life isn't being controlled by a drug, and that happiness has spilled over into every other aspect of my life. After years of groping through the darkness, Alan Carr's Easy Way released me from a world of doom and gloom into a world of sunshine, health and happiness. Walk this path and you will never ever regret it. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to share Alan Carr's Easy Way with you. I wish you all the very best for a happy, smoke-free future.